Hello and welcome. My name is Carol Carter and I'm the founder and CEO of GlobalMindED. We create a capable, diverse talent pipeline to get more women, people of color, first generation to college, all manner of diversity into the education, economic mobility, and leadership pipelines. We do this in a number of ways. We have an annual conference every year, which this year is what we call the GlobalMindED 2020 event, which is virtual. Normally we're in Denver and have between 1,200 and 1,500 people. We also have Inclusive Leader Awards across 14 different industry sectors so that we know the people that are doing the most for diversity and inclusion. And then we also have programs at 15 different colleges around the country, historically Black colleges, minority serving institutions, and Hispanic serving institutions. Finally, we have a program every year for first generation of college, and Celeste, who's here, runs that program, represents students from colleges around the country, and helps them with their leadership abilities, their networking skills, and sort of the hidden curriculum that people from the more resource zip codes might have. So that's a little bit about GlobalMindED. If you're new to this event, we're glad that you're here. And we also have a YouTube channel. And so the session that you're going to see today will be featured on YouTube within the next 24 hours. So without further ado, I want to tell you a little story about Josh Henges and how I got to know his work. Last summer, I was in Kansas City for an event and was introduced to Jason Candor, who Josh works with, and I'm sure he'll be referencing Jason's good work. Jason's a veteran himself, and I'm always looking anytime I go to any city or any other country for really interesting ways that people are closing the equity gap. And this particular project really struck me for the innovative way that we look at a population, which is veterans, who are homeless with dignity and with support. And I was able to go and see this entire community that Josh leads. So without any more, Josh is going to give us a little bit more about himself and the background and all this, but we're really delighted to have Josh here today and really honored to support our veterans every day in every way that we can at GlobalMindED, and look forward to not only getting more homeless veterans into housing, but traveling Josh's good work so that this is a model for other people who are homeless. So welcome, Josh. We're so glad that you're with us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. Wish I could be with you in person. It'd be amazing. So I remember when you came out here, it was really exciting when you came. We were finishing up phase 2 of our build. So I'm actually in one of our tiny houses right now. And at some point, I want to give you a tour from where I'm at. It's going to be a little shaky because I got to do it, with the computer. So it's a little weird. But
that's okay, but I'm sure people would love to see it.
Yeah, and I love showing them off. They're amazing. So we built these in phases, but kind of going back to why VCP started, serving veterans it's interesting. Serving homeless people is interesting because what you realize very quickly is the funding for homelessness is chopped up in a variety of ways. And if you don't fit in a specific way that thing's chopped up, you're not going to get help. It's really, really interesting. So when you think veterans, you usually think like right away, it's, oh, well, they get benefits, right? Well, it's about 18% of veterans are receiving benefits, 18.
Wow.
And it's around 25% of all vets are connected to a vet serving organization of any kind. So 75 or more % of all vets are not connected to any vet serving organization, including the VA. So receiving benefits is for a very kind of a special group of folks who have served. And then on top of that, if you have a discharge status that's anything other than honorable, it's very unlikely that you're going to receive any kind of services or benefits. And if, let's say you were in the National Guard and you were not called up to go overseas, you're not going to receive any benefits there either. So if you're an individual experiencing homelessness and you're a veteran, but you don't fit the VA's definition, that small 18% 25% definition, you kind of fall through the cracks because regular, or I'll say non-vet serving agencies see you as a vet. So they kick you over to the vet serving agencies. Well, the vet serving agencies, where they're funded through the VA doesn't recognize them. So they kick them back to the normal person, like normal non-vet population. And that happens all the time. So VCP started with the thought.
And let me just ask you real quick, just spell out the acronym so everyone knows what that is.
VCP is Veterans Community Project. Should have said that right away. Nobody knows.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, Veterans Community Project. It started knowing that. So we serve any vet, even if you served 1 day in the military, we consider you a veteran. If you raise the right hand to take that oath to serve, we got you. We want to help you. It started with a bus pass program. So the idea was always to do housing, but you really want to generate support in the community. You want to get some buy-in. You better offer something in the meantime, because you can't just start building houses from nothing. You've got to get a lot of support, money, people, resources, all of it. So we had a vision. The founders had a vision really early on. I came in right before we started building the first 13 houses. So the bus pass program had been going on for about a year. And what the bus pass program was a partnership with the Transit Authority in Kansas City, where any vet would get a bus pass that was good for 2 years. So a couple things that does is it's another form of ID. I've never worked with a homeless person that hasn't lost their ID, ever. It's never happens. 100% success rate, you're gonna get your ID stolen or it's gonna get lost. So having that other form of ID really, really helps. It's also transportation, and transportation does two things. It eliminates excuses on the person who needs help side, and it eliminates excuses on the social service side. Far too often you see it on both ends. Oh, I couldn't get there. Well, now you can. Or I sent them to do this thing, but they didn't do it. Well, now they're there, so you better step up and do your part because they showed up, right? You see it on both sides. Transportation being eliminated from the barrier list changes everything. About 3,000 vets signed up for that. Got the city really, really excited, and we turned this plot of land, and I've got a slideshow, if any, I can just put a link, I don't know, doesn't matter. There's a way to visualize this, and I got it. You can see what it was and what it became. We got 49 tiny houses right now. This plot of land was basically a repository for old mattresses and beer cans, and now we've got a whole community here. It's really, really sweet.
And Josh, it might be valuable just because I've seen it all myself, just to put the deck up, and we don't have to make it all about the deck, but just so if some people can't really visualize, the community you've built, I thought was incredible. And the way you have the community center there, and then all the tiny homes around it. And so it's definitely, it's very expansive and very impressive, but just for the viewers to be able to a little bit more imagine, what it looks like, I think it'd be great to, maybe
I'm going to
show.
share my screen on a photo of what the village looks like right now. That might help with that.
Perfect. Nice.
Oops. Of course I did that.
That's all right.
There
We're
it
in a
is.
flexible mode.
Yes. So you can see it right there. Looks good. Didn't always look that way. I'm going to stop sharing. All right, I'm back. We did it. Back and
Great. Good.
forth. Yeah. So where were we? Let's keep going. Let's keep freestyling. I like this.
Well, you were talking a little bit about when the idea came to be, and how can you share how you got the funds to be able to get you to the place where you could really start building out all of these different homes that you made?
Yeah. So Veterans Community Project has no federal funding whatsoever. And one of the reasons that it doesn't is if federal money is going to come, they're going to tell you who to serve. Once again, we'll be stuck in one of those boxes like we talked about before. So this was a total community effort. Kansas City said, I want this. And they stepped up. So
Good for them.
I know it's amazing. Kansas City is one of the most philanthropic places I mean, it's Midwest. I mean, it's all the normal things that you think about Midwest sensibility. Man, this community wants to end homelessness. It's amazing.
That's awesome. That's where all my relatives are from. So I just got to put a little plug, little shout out. Yeah.
Yes. So it was individual contributions, it was corporate donors, and then foundation support. Those were the things. And what people really want is an innovative or new approach. You know, the founders were grappling with this idea of what to build. I mean, do we renovate a school? Do we, you know, all these things they're thinking. And Teresa Lohr, she was the board president, a member of city council. She's an incredible woman, a huge inspiration for me. She said, let's, like, to this group, how about tiny houses? The thing is, you're going to get blowback from the community one way or the other, but you're not going to get blowback for helping veterans. And there's a movement right now for minimalist in this tiny house movement that's happening. So you're capturing two things at once. So even though the homeless serving side is going to say, why don't you build an apartment complex? You can house more people. I think we can confidently look back and sit across the table from them and say, we want the community to care about this. They're not going to care about just another apartment building for homeless people. They're not. And if you don't have community buy-in, it won't last long term. You need the community, because we built a neighborhood here. That means we've got neighbors. We are surrounded by folks who are living in non-tiny house, non-homeless housing, whatever you want to call it. So if you want them to buy in, it better improve the neighborhood. It better improve their life. Yeah, so that's a big reason why this took off.
And it's also really attractive. Like it's beautiful, everything that you all have done. So it's a place that you want to be within it, walking around as somebody who is living there. And then you want to be somebody whose property is adjoining there because it's so well done.
Yeah, and it increased property value pretty quickly. Within, I don't know, a year and a half, an investment group bought the apartment complex across the street, and they came in and they said they wish they bought it sooner because they missed out on like some percentage point of the land value going up here. So we want to beautify this part of the city. It's in South Kansas City. We picked this location. It was available in the land bank, and it's on a bus line, right? So when the founders pitched this to city council, they were bidding against actually an apartment developer. They put down a 6-figure bid, and the founders put down $500, but they sold the vision, and the city approved the vision. So with $500 and a good idea, they got this thing going, and man, it's been one happy accident after another. I mean, a lot is done intentionally. But to see how the community came around this, that's rare. That's unique. That's special.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Well, you want to give us a little tour so that people can see maybe inside and out what it looks like?
Oh, absolutely. So this is a single unit. It's 240 square feet. And everything that you see in here, behind me, you see like pots and pans and stuff. They get to take that with them when they leave. Everything. So they're going to move into their next housing situation fully furnished. All right. So it comes with a chair. They get to pick the chair and a desk and another chair. And then, of course, TV. I don't know if you can see it. The lighting's a little bed. And then the bed has drawers for storage. And I love homeless people, but they accumulate so much stuff. So this is a chance to teach them. You don't need to carry all those things. And obviously there's a metaphor in there and all of it. So comes with one of these, it's got your iron and all your things like that. This is a mini split. Mitsubishi hooked us up with these. They're rated for 1,200 square feet. So they're super efficient. That does heating and cooling. Got your bathroom, got your shower, and the bathroom's pretty normal size. Tankless water here, so they never run out of hot water. Super duper efficient. And then the way it's designed, so there's one way in and out. So this is the view from the bed. So when the vet lays down, this is what they're seeing right here. This is safe, right? No one's peering in. There's no windows on this side. There's no windows on this side. They can see who's coming in and coming out, because let me tell you, there's going to be post-traumatic stress from their time in service. There could be, right? There's also going to be post-traumatic stress from being homeless. Being homeless is survival mode. That's what being homeless is. It's a very isolating and lonely event. When people ask me, how do you describe, or how does one become homeless? It's just a slow process of isolation. And before you know it, you don't have someone in here that you can call anymore. And where do you go, right? So now you're in survival mode. And for whatever reason, whatever behavior may have caused it, we can worry about the behavior later, but that's usually the why. There's no more couches to sleep on. So you have to become a certain kind of way to survive that. And if you want to break back through in connecting to another community, you need to be in a safe place for a while before that happens. As much as I want you to be able to rely on your neighbor for a ride, the first couple of weeks, you're not even going to want to talk to anybody. But the house, the way it's designed, it speeds up that healing process because it was intentionally made with post-traumatic stress in mind. They don't have to worry anymore. That's a big thing. And then their brain starts to calm down. Now, about 2-3 weeks in, they can actually start thinking creatively. There's some really good problem-solving skills that, what is someone to describe it? You can't teach math to someone being chased by a tiger, right? You got to get away from the tiger. Safe, now we're good. Now we can talk about critical thinking. Now we can talk about prioritizing what I need to do to get whatever it is fixed or healed, right? So does it make any sense to go to the outside?
Yeah, I would say show them outside because it's awesome. I still have all my pictures I took last year, so.
All right, I want to see how the light adjusts. You guys still got it?
We still have it. Yep. See,
Right.
It's just so cool. It's beautiful. You can easily see it. Yeah, in all directions. 360.
Yes. So one of the things, the way we built it was, so you see this house, the windows, they'll never match up. So the windows from this house will never look into a window in that house. It's all
You got
designed
the
out.
privacy. Yeah, I think that's so, that makes so much sense. And Josh, tell us too about two different things. One is, I know Honeywell was one of your first, major sponsors, but tell us how that relationship came to be. And then I'm also just wondering, the whole community center that's there, if you can let people know a little bit more about what goes on in there, what kinds of services are offered, and just the way to build community, not just in the neighborhoods that's established there, but also within that community center.
Yeah, so we had a lot of, once Brandon built the first house, put it on a trailer, the first iteration of the house, I should say, because it's been through a lot of, before we decided what was going to be built here, it went through some evolution. The second Brandon built the first one and put it on a trailer and began talking about it, the community responded. So phone calls started coming in from individuals. Hey, I want to help. And then from some corporations. Well, Honeywell reached out and they really wanted to help. Mm-hmm. They wanted to do something big. They wanted to do something important. So they built the first house that we would use for tours, to show people what it was like to be inside the house. And they've been out several times to help us build, especially through the first phase. So like their presence here early on, their fingerprints are all over this place. They're an incredible group. Wait, and you asked the second question. Community center. Yes, so that was a good, we had the community center planned from the beginning. So where the community center is now used to be it's a metal construction trailer. And that's where my office was for, I don't know, a year and a half. And our development team, they're just amazing. And they did a tour. One of our operations guys gave a tour to a company and he asked to remain anonymous. And the guy cut a check, a 6-figure check to get it started. And from that, it's always, when you have money, you'll get money, right? So money means other people are believing in your vision. So when this person put that amount into it, other organization says, yeah, I want to be a part of this. Plus, you have to think creatively in how you sell sponsorships with it. Inside that building, we've got a doctor's office. We've got a veterinary clinic. We've got a dentist office. We've got a pet washing station. We've got a fellowship hall, computer lab. We've got commercial kitchens, and we've got all the case management offices. So there's an opportunity to once again connect the vets to the community and the community to the vets through all of those services. And you can do it in a variety of ways. Yes, you can offer pet care and you can offer a dog wash, but why not connect it to some entrepreneurial opportunities and create a work training through something with pets, right? Grooming, whatever, vet tech, you get the idea. And the same thing with computer lab. You can have a computer lab, but why not get some vocational training in there with how to use computers from the basics all the way to getting certification and advanced things in IT security, all of that. So that's how you have to think if you want to solve this problem. It's not just give the service and move on. How do you maximize every little thing in this in order to everyone's money that they put into this? We got to make it worth that too. But then you got to look that person in the eye that you're working with and say, I'm going to do the most I can. This isn't the least I can do type place. And the people who gave to build that community center, that's who they were. We want to honor everything they put into that.
Well, and Josh, I think you guys have the same attitude we do, that anyone who invests in what we're doing, we want to give them the best ROI they've ever had. Mm-hmm. And you do that through thinking in a really integrated way instead of a way that's siloed or isolated. And I think, this is an analogy to how you guys have approached this with, how K-12 is looking at, what they're going to have to be doing to teach in the fall. Like there's a lot of things that are going to involve wraparound services that involve, health and housing and engagement and learning and basic skills and, all those different things that are going to have to be wrapped for different populations. So.
Absolutely right. There are some questions in the Q&A. Do we wait for that, or how does that work?
We can, if you want to do a little bit more, any other more overview, then go to question, or you can do it now, whatever.
There's a million.
We're just,
I could freestyle on homelessness for 2 straight hours. So Richard Jordan asked, solar energy for hot water. So right now, the houses are so efficient, solar, it doesn't benefit us cost-wise. So I think the electricity bills for each house are like $18 a month, something like this. So we've had offers from solar companies to come, but even when they come, they're like, it's so efficient, there's not a net value yet. I'm sure it'll get there. What we want with solar though is something bigger. We want to connect it to workforce opportunity, not just putting solar on the houses. We'd want to be bigger than that. And we'll get there. I definitely want this place to be completely green. I want it to be carbon neutral. I mean, all of it. I want it to be, that has to be the vision. I think that'd be so cool. Yeah, and we're super interested right now. We're going to find the right way to do it, but we want to connect it to that bigger vision. That's a really good question. I love that question. Yeah, keep questions coming. That's really cool.
Well, and I've got one kind of related to that now you're at the stage where you are now, and you said you'd love to be carbon neutral. You have these other goals. What are your other really bold goals that you all have?
So we are expanding right now. We're going to be in Longmont, Colorado, which is 50 minutes outside of Denver. We want to be in 7 more cities by 2022. I don't know what COVID is doing to those plans, but we are going to march as if that goal is still attainable and doable. And that's what Jason Candor's role here is. He's such a good guy. I can't say that enough. He's a good guy with such a good heart. And so for folks who don't know, he was running for mayor here in Kansas City. He was going to be the mayor of Kansas City. So everyone was behind him. Kansas City votes for Democrats for mayor. It's just kind of how it is. And he was who they picked. He was in the lead by 1 billion points. And he came and toured here one day, and he said to his wife, man, I'd love to just drop out and work here, joking. Well, as the campaign went on, 8-9 months, he was really feeling something, and he's open about this. I'm not speaking out of school here. And he was really hurting from something, and it was a lot of things that had happened to him while he was overseas. He's a veteran. He's an intelligence officer, and he had to go through quite a bit, and he had to step down out of the race because it was affecting everything in his life. And this was the first place he came. And what he said was, if VCP wasn't here, or if I lived in another city, I wouldn't know what to do. So let's make sure there's a VCP in every city. So that's what he came on to do. And he is committed to expanding VCP into these other cities so that anyone who's going through what he's going through can get help. And he's a lawyer, right? He went to Georgetown and got a law degree, and he couldn't make sense of how to get through a process at the VA. He needed our help to do it, right? And that's, I think you know what I mean, right? So, being a lawyer is like, you are the top critical thinker. Like, that's, the field of critical thinking and problem solving. So when you're feeling what you're feeling, it's really tough to use that logic part of your brain. It's really hard. So we were glad to be here, and we're glad that he's here. So expanding is really big. And then, of course, here in Kansas City, tying housing to employment is critical. So what we really want to do, and we talks with the USDA and a company called Biogen, and they do these rapid greenhouses, so they can grow a crop and it can be harvested and it can grow again in a 24-hour period. Of course, it depends. Like, you're not growing watermelons in 24 hours, but there are crops that do that, and there's a need for things like hay, cilantro, but there's a market for them. So if we can set up Biogen greenhouses, we can create amazing workforce opportunities for our vets here, because you don't just have a crop. You've got supply chain logistics, you've got sales, you've got maintenance and upkeep. So you've got all these things tied in. So any program that we have, we want to tie into that next level. And that's just kind of one idea. I remember when we first met with them, we meet with a lot of people to figure out, and God bless a lot of people. And in the nonprofit world, everyone knows this. Like 99% of it, you're just like, all right, next. I was so excited. I just couldn't contain it, how excited I was about that idea. But when we're moving forward with that right now, I believe we're going to pitch the USDA on why they should give us money for these biogens. So wish us luck for that.
We will, and we work with this woman Mojda from there, who's been part of GlobalMindED in their entrepreneurial area. Yeah, so we might have to make that connection.
I would love that. I want to, yeah, and plus they're probably gonna have some good ideas for us. So I can envision it. A lot of details that I probably don't have any idea about. Yeah. We also have, so we're at 13% female occupancy. We want it to be 20% in 2020. Women make up about 8 or 9% of the vet population. And I'm pretty sure that's the stat. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what I read. But if it's not, doesn't matter. Our goal is to double it. Our goal at VCP is to be double that of the normative, whatever the demography is for female vets here in the village. Being a homeless woman in America is probably the hardest thing in America to do. So almost all services are designed for homeless men, and homeless men are often victimized on the streets. Like I said, you're isolated, you're alone. Imagine having children in that situation. And homeless single women with children is the fastest growing demographic of homelessness. So we really want to have a response to that. And of course, me personally, I want to see what we've developed here move into other spheres of homelessness. So DV, youth homelessness, single homelessness, and family homelessness. I really think there's a lot of the principles that we've learned a lot. So I think we can spread the mistake not to make. Yeah. So,
I mean, one other one is, recently incarcerated and people who have bad credit. And, there's just some other aspects of that also I think could be really laced in and applied.
we want to get really big. Like, one of the things that happens in homelessness, there are trends in homelessness, right? So the normal continuum is, it's believed to be this linear process. So you go from the street to the shelter to transitional living to permanent housing. And it's designed to be this linear process. All right, so we'll pull you off the street and into the shelter. Get your stuff together at the shelter. We'll get you into transitional living, get your stuff there, and then move you into permanent housing. That's great in a vacuum, right? But it usually doesn't work that way. And it usually doesn't work that way because of how each of those systems are designed. They're designed through the worldview of non-homeless people, of non-addicts, of folks who are not going through the things that the people they're serving are going through. So here's a good example. This was Friday. We're working with a guy. He's street homeless. He needs to do a SATOP class. That's like a DWI class to get his license back. So we find some money to pay for it. His SATOP class is from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Well, the homeless shelter won't let him in because he's coming in after their curfew. So what's this person supposed to do? He has to pick getting his driver's license back or a place to sleep. That's the system. And that's not isolated. You usually have to line up at a shelter at about 3:30. If you don't, you're not going to get a bed. It takes a while to get processed in, hour and a half, depending. But let's say you have a job and your job starts at 4, or you don't get off until 4. Do you tell your boss, I got to go to get in line at the home? Like, that's not going to last very long. What if it's 30? What if it's 20 degrees? You have to have this fight inside. And like, what does it do to your soul when the fight inside you is, do I keep my $7 an hour job or do I sleep outside? Like, how do you feel any kind of worth or value when you're going through that? But that's the system. That is how it's set up. And then the rules that you have to follow to get into transitional housing, the bar is so high. There are so many barriers. If they believe you are drinking or under the influence of any kind at the shelter, they're going to throw you right out. If you happen to get into transitional living, most transitional living is just very notoriously difficult to get in and even harder to stay in. I've seen, and this is in the TED Talk, I say the word dozens, and it's more than that, of people that get removed from transitional housing because they're not attending mandated programming because they're at work. Like, what are we talking about here? What's more important, your programming or their income stability, right? So, and then you're supposed to then attain this thing, and then you'll get into permanent housing. Like, you slowly walk up these steps. Well, that's all fine and good for someone who's never undergone trauma, for someone who's never had an addiction or can kick it or has resources or has a phone or has transportation, like all these things. So when we designed this thing, it was we want permanent housing readiness. We want to get these folks permanently housed, but we want to start with housing first principles, right? So there was this big, it's funny how funding cycles reframe innovation, right? So whatever the funding cycle is what people are going to be, what programs are going to be offered, rather than recognizing what the problem is and seeking funding for that. There's this big boom called Housing First, which it's this: get them housed, and then we'll work on the things that cause their homelessness. That's great. That's awesome. It doesn't consider the housing market. So if you own, let's say you're a property manager or you own an apartment, and the way Housing First works is the federal government will flood a city with vouchers. Well, those vouchers have to have a home, and the home is the existing housing infrastructure, right? So you got to get a partner. We got to partner up with a housing management company or a landlord who agrees to take vouchers. How many vouchers are you going to take of a homeless person who has no idea how to live in permanent housing, right? Who's going to put holes in the walls, who's still going to do drugs, who's going to have prostitutes over. It's typical behavior of about 10% of the homeless population, but it's the 90-10 rule. 10% cause 90% of the problems, right? So that isn't market facing. That's not a market facing idea. It's good that it's a client facing idea. It's awesome. But how quickly are you going to run out of inventory? And those housing vouchers, that's Confederate money all of a sudden. If you've got nowhere, if those vouchers don't have a home, those homeless people don't have a home. So what are you doing, right? So then you feed them right back through that linear system that doesn't work. And we created that linear system so that we could safely blame the client when it doesn't work. At the end of the day, we want to lay our head on the pillow at night and believe we did good, right? That we did something right. But let's say that process doesn't work. I don't want to blame myself the whole time. I'm going to feel terrible, right? So I've got to convince myself that it's their fault. And that's what you see all the time in this field. You can ask any homeless person. You show them that clip, just that clip. Yep, that's pretty much how it is. It's just amazing. And what do you do when you're serving that system, right? The people who work in that, if you want to maintain your sanity, you have to believe that that works. You know what I mean? You're getting a paycheck from that system. You better believe in it, or you're going to go crazy. You're going to fight against it, or you're going to submit to it. You can't be in the middle. It's one of the two. And that's why we created this place. We want housing first principles, but it better be market facing. If these folks aren't ready for permanent housing, we're going to burn every bridge into permanent housing we get.
No, it's a really good distinction. And I think it's interesting because I feel like what you all are doing on the housing front is how we look at education and employment. It's all integrated. You have to have a big tent. You have to have uncommon collaborators. And if you don't have all those people, then you don't know what your blind spots are. And then you can't solve for problems you don't know about. So that's where I feel like you guys have such a great 360 of what the needs are from the way that you've structured all of this. So let's do a few more questions. Can you read those easily, Josh, or do you want Celeste to share what they are? Go in there real quick.
How are you utilizing International Day for Women and Girls in Science? Maybe that's for you guys.
Yeah, I think that, Celeste, you can answer that separately. We had all of our profiles on March on women, and we'll put that in the chat, whoever asked that.
Yeah, I think, oh, here, another one came up. Good. Please send in some questions if you all have them. Looks like Richard Jordan is our question human highlight reel. So Richard, if you have more questions, shoot them over, brother.
Thanks, Richard.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
And actually, we have, Celeste, are we able to let people unmute if they just want to ask themselves or not? Are we set up for that? Okay, so if you guys want to just even ask Josh any questions that you have, feel free because you can unmute and ask him yourself.
Have you asked Patrick to help with PR? Well, he's been out here. So one of our big sponsors is Community America. The question I'll ask again, have you asked Patrick Mahomes to help with PR? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work quite like that. I wish we could. So Community America is the title sponsor for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're the banking partner. Sorry, GIA is the title sponsor. So Community America is the official bank of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure the Broncos or wherever you're from have the same thing. With that, what they bought was naming rights and then 4 appearances from whoever they wanted. We're going to pick Patrick Mahomes. He's MVP, Super Bowl MVP. And Community America, one of their appearances they picked was for him to come here. So he came and helped do some painting. And now the Chiefs have been an incredible partner of ours. They've been out several times. You talk about a philanthropic group of people. Oh my gosh, the Hunt family. There's just incredible people there. They've come out. They actually gave us Super Bowl tickets.
Wow.
So yeah, we were able to bless some staff folks to get out there and go to Miami and watch them win, which is really cool too. So I love that question. I love unique questions like that.
Carol, this is Richard. Without monopolizing the conversation, Josh, I have slept as an overnight volunteer over 35 years, 2,000 nights with homeless people in church-run shelters in New York City. And veterans are actually treated very, very well in New York City if you're homeless. Thank you for what you're doing. It's great. And Carol, thank you.
Richard, I used to live on 109th between Amsterdam and Broadway, and I used to volunteer at the St. John the Divine Soup Kitchen on Sundays. So I,
Trustee of the kitchen. Yep.
Yeah, we have some of the same worlds there. So yeah.
Richard,
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I love that. And like when you're in this field, you always find the people who have slept with the homeless. I did the same thing, Richard, especially when I first started. I wanted to get to know them. I was it was in Columbia, Missouri, going to school. And I've been obsessed with, I was a kid. I remember the first time I saw a homeless person. I remember the first time I talked to a homeless person. I've been obsessed since I was 5 years old. So I just said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start hanging out with the homeless. And that's what I did every weekend. And I got it so I didn't have school on Monday, so I could be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I started going every day. I love it. I just can't get enough of it. I can't. And there's so many good people out there that there are a lot of solutions. I'll say that. And a lot of passionate, solution-driven people. We are at such an amazing time to solve this problem. And if you think about it, and this is true, solving homelessness is a logistics problem. It's not a compassion problem. Americans are so compassionate, so compassionate. Twitter's a funhouse mirror. People love people. People want to heal. I will see the end of homelessness in this generation. I genuinely believe it. This is a committed group of people. We've got the right ideas and the right people. And thank you. Please keep sending questions. We're low on the questions, Richard. So if you have any, please shoot them over.
Yeah, and I just want to acknowledge, because we haven't talked about it, but just in terms of people who may be watching this segment later on the YouTube channel, that we're here, on June the 1st, right this minute of 2020, where there's, violence happening in all the different cities, protesting police brutality, some of our generational and systemic issues that we've had that are racial. And I'm wondering as well, Josh, just how you harmoniously work with people from all different backgrounds and cultures and religions and races within the community that you have there, so that it's a very inclusive community for folks.
That's such a good question. And of course, there's a certain, what did NPR say this morning? George Floyd felt like a strike three. And I kind of feel like that's how it felt. Yeah. No, nobody wants people to feel pain. Like, I don't want people to, especially this kind of pain. Obviously we want it all day in, but I think what I want more than anything is there to be true justice. And true justice to me is a change in behavior, right? Sitting in shame or sitting in pain is worthless unless it's connected to behavior change. Mm-hmm. So that's what I hope this brings, but it's the same thing on a much smaller scale when you're working with folks who are experiencing homelessness. Very few homeless individuals are homeless by chance. It was for whatever reason, and sometimes it could be mental health, it could be whatever. It's usually something that they've done or continue to do. And that's a very broad statement. So please understand it. I'm not saying it as, well, if they're schizophrenic, well, yes, we'll address that. But it's a behavior that has happened that has led them to be homeless, right? To get help. And those who have mental illness, they make up some percentage of this. Homelessness is in general broken down like this. So 10% are chronic. And the chronically homeless are the ones that you see wearing 55 jackets in the middle of July. They're the ones who are homeless for years and years. You've got 10% who are about to become chronic. And then you've got 80%. And the 80% is they're homeless for 2 weeks or less and they're never homeless again, right? They are like, if Carol, if you became homeless for whatever reason, you've got a Rolodex of people. You'd be homeless for a few seconds, right? But that would count. That's 2 weeks or less. So what you're really focusing on is that 20%. Now the 10% who are chronic, there's only so much you can do. And that's where you have to put in housing first principles, but you've got to find housing that is suitable for someone who's just going to keep doing drugs, right? And for some, that's fine. Like, I don't condone it, but their housing is far more important than my worldview about whether or not they do it, right? If housing is the goal, let's house them, right? That next 10% who are about to become chronic, that's the wheelhouse that you've got to focus on. Because once they become chronic, it's really difficult. But when they're in that spot right there, you can actually begin to change behavior. And that's the hard part. And it kind of goes back to your question. How do you do it with such a variety of how they were raised, what their race is, what their religion is, what they went through? Because we as people, we love categories. We just love them. And even in the vet community, they love their categories too. So first it's, what branch were you? Oh, you're Navy, you're a banana. Like, right, the Army guy's going to make fun of the Navy lady, and the Marine person's going to make fun of the Coast Guard, and you get it, right? So there's categories there. And then there's categories within the specific branch. Oh, did you go downrange overseas, or were you loading trucks in Muncie, Indiana, right? So even there's a divide. So there's all these built-in divides when everyone comes here. The best thing about VCP, Veterans Community Project, is we don't care. We don't care if you served one day. We don't care if you went downrange 1,000 times. We are going to treat you the exact same. The person who washed out in boot camp. You are a person who can make it. That's how it is. So we believe in trauma-informed. I also believe in radical candor. So being radically honest with this population is the only way behavior gets changed. Someone becomes homeless, something about how they do life must change. It has to. Whatever they were doing led them to be homeless. Their best ideas led them to become homeless. So finding the thing that caused it, the domino, is what our goal is, but that requires honesty. But you don't get to be honest, and you don't get to speak into someone's life. I'll say it that way. You don't get to speak into someone's life unless you've earned it, and you earn it with compassion. So it's the same compassion for the boot camp washout to the 40-year vet. We're going to treat you the same. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to talk the same way to the Vietnam vet as I do to the post 9/11 younger, you know what I mean? But we're going to treat you the exact same. But it is hard. It's definitely hard. And you have to have a well of compassion. It's like different wells of compassion for each person. Some people need so much more grace than others, right? Some people can do so much more. You just got to figure out how deep the compassion you need to have for this person is. And you find it. If you can't find it, you can't be in this field. Beat it. We've got no room for you to be mean or angry. You don't get to speak someone's life until you've earned it. When you've earned it, then it's meaningful to them.
Absolutely. Looks like there's another question, Celeste. Is there a new question that just came in? I think there might be. While she's looking at that, I'll just also share that when I left corporate America after 17 years, I went and volunteered for 2 years at the federal prison in Denver with Native Americans in maximum security, and then men in the camp who were going to get out in the next year. And the whole thing of how you build trust, how people who you may have not much in common with, you figure out where you do have a big Venn diagram. And that's where the trust is, where you can, get the healing. And I used to say, I'm supposed to be out here as your teacher, but really, like, I'm a student of the kinds of things that you've been through and that you've learned. And if you were in my family, you wouldn't be here. And if I were in your family, I would probably be in the same place. And this is how we can all help each other, I
love that. I love that you did that too. Yeah, 89% of the folks who live here are just as involved at some point in their life.
Yeah.
So
one of my college professors at University of Arizona, she went every Saturday, taught humanities to the Florence prison, this Dr. Donna Swain. And I just always thought, I'm going to do that someday. And then I thought, well, this is as good of time as any. And that's so influenced, everything else that happened from that time period. So.
Mhm. Oh, that's incredible. I
Josh,
love
there
it.
are a couple questions. One was whether or not you work with the United Way.
Yeah, we work with them in a couple ways. We are working with them to do what's called entry for, so going back to COVID. COVID is about to be a problem on a scale that we haven't seen yet. The United States we can do this. We have the workforce, we have the people, we can stem this. I know that we can. But we're going to need funds to keep people from becoming homeless. It's 10 times cheaper to prevent them from becoming homeless than it is to get them off the streets. So there's a thing called emergency assistance funding. Instead of a person calling 55 agencies to get their gas bill paid, what we want is them to call one place. That place finds the right agency or agencies. We get together on the back end and then present the solution to the client. So we're working with United Way to do that. And they also are a switchboard for all veteran services in this area. So they've been a pretty cool partner.
And then the other question was wondering if you've convinced Kansas City, or if the VCP has convinced Kansas City and its corporate partners to use your model to expand it to other groups in the homeless population.
Yeah, so that's on the table now. We want to be thoughtful in how we do it. And we definitely want to partner with other organizations. So and we say model, there's a couple things. So we went out to I think it's New Jersey City, New Jersey. I believe that's
Jersey City, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like across the water from New York City. Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
So
Jersey City.
We were it was Candor and Brian, our CEO, and they went out there and met with the mayor. And so we were in talks to do, I'm as far as I know, the talks are still happening. So like the tiny house model, that's never going to work in Jersey City. You're going to waste your space, right? But the model of, so we go up there, it makes sense. Midwest, there's so much room. But the model of any vet, no matter what, and also our approach to case management, we'd love to bring, but it would work with any population. So if we work with a municipality, we're happy to work with how that model works. So in Colorado, when we were meeting with the city, and we spoke about our case management approach, it's permanent housing readiness, and we have 5 supports, and each support has a 10-point system. So you can actually see someone's progression as they go through, and progression's not linear. It's not how it works. It's up and down. So you got to measure things very, very differently. And it could be that the continuum of care in that area, which is the group of service providers in Boulder County, would move to a system like that. So we're happy to have those conversations. We love them.
And I have a quick question there too, is are you working with the Colorado Health Foundation or the Colorado Trust within Colorado?
Yeah, they gave us our first grant.
They did. Okay, they're one of our which Colorado Health Foundation? Yeah, so they're one of our big sponsors for GlobalMindED as well. And Karen McNeil Miller is doing a session next week with a panel of different leaders. Yeah, so you'll have to make sure you watch the newsletter, sign up for that. So
thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Celeste, is there another question there? And then we're probably almost out of time after one more question.
That's it. I think we've answered them all.
Is that it? Okay, excellent. And I just want to say that's interesting. We've got a mix of a lot of women showing up for this topic. So I'm glad to see that. I don't know if you all are also, veterans yourselves, or you're working with veterans, or you're interested in homelessness, but it's really nice to see a lot of women on this topic and advocating for this. So, well, Josh, you want to just maybe summarize with some closing thoughts, and then I'll summarize on some programming for the rest of this week.
Yeah, I think if I were to leave with anything, it would be we can actually do this. At the event, what I was looking forward to most was being in a room of 1,200 people who want to solve problems. I really think that the answer is here. I think that there is someone who is going to listen to this, who is going to know how to end homelessness. We know how to do this part. We know it's not the full thing. Whoever you are, we want to work with you. We want to find you, and we want to get this done. I promise we can do this. And whoever you are that's listening, believe in that little thing that says it's you. Do it. it can
And
work.
what we love too, Josh, is at GlobalMindED, we have like a rural equity team. We have a health equity team. So maybe you can be the leader of our homeless, end homeless equity team, and the people that are cycling with this and those from the social justice realms and some others can also be part of it. So let's just say that between now and 2021, next June, when we're all vaccinated and showing up live in Denver, that we've got those connections and that your tribe is able to form this year through these sessions in the YouTube. And that would be really good silver lining to this really tough time of COVID and all the racial unrest that's going on out there.
I
So
love it.
thanks to all of you. We've got wonderful programs this week. In fact, tomorrow, the Council for Opportunity and Education, the Pell Institute, and Penn Ahead is going to be revealing their 2020 report and giving the COVID-related indicators to that, as well as some of the racial unrest, social upheaval going on right now. And then we've got several other session on the learning economy, one on trauma-informed coaching and teaching later this week by Dr. Sean McCune. So our whole group of topics this week is on access and equity. And then next week, we'll have many of our, what we call our main stage sessions, which is our theme for this year, which is the future of work is diverse and inclusive. So there's one event next week called the future of work is gender equal. There's another called the future mobile and adaptive. Another one is, work is about young change makers under 16. And so really check into that newsletter, those sessions are, and we'll like to welcome all of you. Celeste, I know, put Josh's contact information in there. He's a super collaborative person. Like I say, I met him last summer and we've been, communicating, and anyone you can connect him to in your networks that would help his work. I know he's the same for you. So thanks to all of you, and we hope to see you next June in person, June 2021 in Denver. And until then, we will work through Zooms and emails and every other way to move the needle forward and to end the homelessness. And thank you so much for your leadership, Josh, and give our very best to Jason, Brian, the rest of the team out there, and of course, all of your amazing residents there.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Celeste.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.